You the method that I use for stenciling when I do my wood palette signs. And the easiest way that I've found is to use makeup sponge brushes. So I'm going to show you how to do that in this quick video. What I like to use is these makeup sponge wedges that I get at Walmart. For 100 I pay about $5 or so, and I usually cut them in half like this so I get more for my money. I've already applied my stencil to the wood using contact paper. A lot of people like to use vinyl, but for me contact paper works just as well, so that's what I go with. I've already placed it down, and you can see here that I have cut the paper. I cut it with a simple blade like this, and that's just so I can press it down as flat as I can because the wood is uneven. So what I do, I already have my paint here, and I just dip my wedge in the paint, and you don't want very much on there, so I just blot it out. And when you first apply it, it's going to look really light, and that's a good thing, because you don't want to get too much paint underneath the stencil or it's going to bleed everywhere. So you do it very lightly, and usually for the first time around I don't even dip my stencil back into the paint. I just keep going because you want it to be very light. Do the same with the other color. Try to get as much off as you can because these soak up paint anyway, so it makes it a little easier. And a lot of the time I'll put the sponge onto the paper first to get any excess off. And as you can see, it goes on very lightly, and I usually have to use, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 coats before I'm done, but it's worth it if you do it this way, as long as you can be patient, which I know is hard, but you'll make sure that when you peel it off, you have absolutely no bleeding underneath. And in just a second, I will show you what it looks like after you're finished. So I'm going to start doing the second coat now, and you want to wait about 2 minutes or so. Your paint doesn't have to be completely dry that you've already done, but you want to let it dry just a little bit. And when you are doing your coats, you want to make sure that you go straight up and down, that you don't let your sponge rest on the stencil too long, and that you don't go at an angle, because that's going to ensure that none of the paint gets underneath the stencil. Another thing that I had trouble with at first was that since this method takes a little bit of time, usually around 10 minutes or so for the whole thing, I get impatient the longer I go. As you can see, I'm still trying to get all of that excess off so I don't put too much on, because it's tempting. The more coats you do, the thicker to get, and you really don't need to get any thicker. You want to stay light the whole time, because you're just layering it on top of each other, and it's going to get thicker as it goes anyway because of the coats. So try not to get impatient and keep doing your coats very lightly. So looking at it now, you can see that the letters that I painted with brown paint look to be pretty saturated, but the red letters still need more coats. And you'll find that with different colors, you need a different amount of coats for saturation, especially if you're doing a light color on top of a darker color. So just pay attention to how saturated it is, and if one of the colors, like the brown, looks saturated enough, then you can be done with that and just add more layers to the color that needs it. Alright, so I've let this dry for a couple minutes. You don't have to wait for the paint to be completely dry before you pull up your stencil. You just want to make sure you do it carefully so that you don't smear anything. So as you can see, there might be a tiny bit of bleeding because I was impatient to get this video done and I went against my own advice and did a little bit heavy of a layer. But for the most part, it is pretty sharp looking. And then when you're done, you just take a pair of tweezers like this and take out the middle of the letter and you're done. So hope this video helped you out if you want to try out the method for stenciling with makeup sponges.